Hey everyone, it's Pup Twigs here, kicking off season 3 of Unleashed. And today I've got my guest, it's Pup Markosias Fang from Daytona Beach, Florida. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing really good. Just excited that I'm getting to start another season of Unleashed.
I know this podcast is absolutely amazing. The things that you're doing with this and all the pups from pretty much around the world that you're being able to interview.
Yeah, I'm excited to get more pups from around the world. I'm trying to hit certain parts of the country that I've or the world that I've never been. Like we just were talking about it, but pups from Japan. It's been a hard finding someone from there.
Oh yeah.
So let's just get into it. First, I want to find out is what was the inspiration behind your name?
So I used to go by a different name. It was Dipper. Unfortunately, there was a bit of a hard time that I was going through, and Dipper no longer served me as kind of like how I felt at the time. So I ended up taking on the name Markosias. He is a deity. As many people know, I am trans. So how you actually pronounce it is Marshosius. But he basically, in his wolf form, he is a she wolf, and in his human form, he is a male human. So I found a lot of inspiration from him and ended up taking on his name as well as his sigil. And ever since then, I've been able to kind of find a voice for myself so much more than my other name served me. So
Okay.
that's why. And then making it easier, I tell people they can just call me Cozy because some people have a lot of trouble. It's a pretty complicated name for some people. So I'm like, Cozy works with me.
Well, if that works, that's good.
Yeah.
Also, is there any kind of a story behind your pup hood?
So I actually, when I first started off as a pup, I actually had a different hood. I've had two different hoods. I donated both of them to pups who were new to the community.
Hmm.
So my initial one was actually a pink one, which is also a rust up one, and it was donated to my friend because she was new to the community. So I gave it to her. I said, you know what, this is perfect for you. And then I had a leather one that I also donated. And it's funny with that one because the individual who ended up obtaining that hood found me years later. Actually, it was just this recent St. Pete Pride had come up to me and had said, you were one of the reasons that I was able to finally have gear was because you had donated that hood. I was like, that's so awesome because like at the time they couldn't afford it, and when they were able to get it,
Yeah.
that was a big moment for them. But my current hood, I got it from Rust Stuff. I have always been a big fan of like Halloween. Always big. I am actually a huge bone collector. I collect a lot of taxidermy and stuff, so it ended up working perfect for me. And then I have been customizing it to match kind of like the more how I am.
Mhm.
So that's ultimately how I ended up with all these piercings and all my fun stuff with my hood.
Yeah, and there's no one around that has one anything like yours, which is pretty awesome. You're very unique
Yeah,
when it comes to that.
yeah. I mean, there's some on Instagram. There's other. I try to add all the Scully people who have like the same hood as me on Instagram. There's only about three of us that I've found so far, but I always love. We always add each other. We're always like pointing at each other, like, "Oh, you have the same hood."
That is awesome. So, how long have you now been a pup?
So the earliest that I can find is around 2018 is when I got my very first pink hood. I didn't know much about the community, but I absolutely love the hood. And it was actually by chance that I found a documentary on YouTube. I forget the name now, but it was a documentary going over an individual who was new to the pup scene, had, kind of gotten themselves, into it, talked to like a bunch of other people. It was actually set in London, I believe it was. Wonderful documentary. And so ever since 2018, that's when I was able to finally like get my gear and kind of go out of my way to find the community when I was living in Tampa at the time.
Okay. All right. Well, in that time being in the community, what have you found to be the easiest part of being in it?
The easiest part about being in it, it's probably actually for me, being able to make friends was one of the best parts of it. I was terrified when I first came into the community, um, mainly because as a trans man at the time, I was not open. I had never really been part of the queer community, mainly because I just thought that there was not a place for me in it. And it
Right.
was actually the pup community that made it, or not even pup, the critter community that made it so easy for me to finally be able to come out of my cage and actually find the courage to be myself. So the creator community is absolutely wonderful for individuals who are trying to like get into it because I mean we're all very friendly, as you know. I mean we always hold
Yes,
events, always welcoming to everyone.
I agree. Well, on the other hand, what have you found have been the most difficult?
Um, Unfortunately, the most difficult is not a lot of spaces are open to trans people. A lot of people will kind of give me a side, or me, not just me, a lot of trans people side eyes. If we are, obviously openly trans, I
Hmm.
have my own experiences of, not being very welcomed in certain communities and certain spaces. And also being asexual, I get a lot of pushback, especially in sexual like areas. I don't participate, but I have, obviously my partners and my friends, they participate, and
Hmm.
I'm just there to support them if they need anything. But that tends to be the hardest is, being asexual and being trans in a community that, obviously does not, in some spaces, that is not as welcome. Um, but we have done an excellent job turning that around, and obviously in Orlando, I'm allowed in pretty much every space as a trans, asexual pub.
Yeah, and I know the world we're going into is extremely scary, but we're lucky here in the Orlando area that it's so welcoming to everybody.
We are, and obviously it's because of all the hard work that all of the pups in Orlando have put to making this a space that's so welcoming to everyone. That
Mhm.
even when new pups show up, they could be trans, queer, agender, any kind of identity, and actually feel like they're welcome here.
That's right. That's right. Well, what advice would you give somebody that's just now wanting to get into the critter slash pup community?
So what I always tell people, my number one thing, you do not need gear to be able to be a pup, a critter. That is absolutely not something that is required. I always donate a lot of my extra gear, or if I see pups that need something that would make them feel more comfortable in the community, I will always go out of my way to help them with that. But I also emphasize, you don't need gear. And also, even in Orlando Leather Pride, I've always told people you don't need leather to be part of the leather community.
Yep.
I also always kind of emphasize try being a stray pup first before entering kind of like packs that you may not know completely about. I only say this because a lot of the times when you're coming up with your critter sona yourself, it's really good to take that time to discover yourself, discover the community, find things you like, find things you don't like, um, and then join a pack that really kind of opens that up to you. On the other hand, there are certain packs that I would 100% recommend joining, mainly because they're more of a social atmosphere. So like Orlando Hound Pound is excellent. They always have events going on. That is a pack that I think would be beneficial. When I mean more like the smaller packs that are a little bit different, they have different dynamics. It's not so much social; it's more of like a closer knit. I always recommend it's beneficial to go to events, discover yourself, find out what you like, what you don't like, and then start looking for things like that.
I agree with you totally. So what inspired you to embrace the human pup lifestyle?
Um, so as a new trans person, especially in 2018, there wasn't a whole lot of commentary about trans people in the news and things like that. It had been around, but it wasn't something that was like openly So unfortunately, I worked as an EMT at the time. I've worked in medicine for years. And I faced a lot of backlash for being trans.
Hmm.
Um, in my workplace, in the gay community. What ended up happening though is when I found my hood, when I found, my old hood, that's the same one, and I entered these spaces with my hood, I wasn't they never told me I couldn't wear my gear. They thought it was a little strange that there was like someone wearing a pup mask entering these spaces, but
Yeah.
ultimately it ended up being that this encouraged me to be able to be myself. And eventually those same spaces were actually welcoming when I came back. And then other pups felt like they could come because I said, well, I wear my gear every time I go in there, and they never say anything. I mean, of course, the first time they were like, a little strange, but okay. And then after that, I could just keep going in, and eventually with that, it's the benefit of that you get over this social anxiety because you get to wear your gear, you get to like find other pups. Because I can't even tell you, the other day I went to a mosh pit and I wore my gear, and of course I had weird faces and weird looks. But then I had so many people come up to me and be like, I didn't know that you could wear your gear to places like this. And I'm like, well, of course you can. And I always have questions like, how do I get into it? Like, do I have to have a hood? Where can I get a hood? Like all this stuff. You have so many people that are so, fascinated and interested. And they've always wanted to know what this was about. And that's the amazing thing about these communities is that you can feel welcome. You can,
Yeah.
find new people. You can actually introduce people into it and find out that they've looked for this their whole lives. I mean, there's nothing more wonderful about that.
Oh, yes. And you're right. I mean, so many people are just curious about it because
Yeah.
I see it all the time. People coming up wanting to talk to you. Oh, tell me about this. Uh, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
and it means different things for different people, but it's just a wonderful community to be a part of.
And it's because of how welcoming it is. I mean, you have a vast majority of different kinds. You have non-binary, you have trans,
Yes.
asexual, aromantics. I mean, like literally, I have met people from around the world. I've even, as we were talking about, I've met people in Thailand and South Korea who reach out to me and talk to me, and we get to we like each other's photos, and we get to see the different adventures we're going on. And
Yeah.
you even, especially in Germany, I have friends out there that they're like, hey, if you ever come out, you are more than welcome to stay with us. You know what I mean? It's you, not only is it in your own community, it's the whole world
Oh,
that
it
you get
is.
to
It totally, totally.
it's
Well,
amazing.
if money were no object, where would you want to travel to in the world?
So I've actually traveled to quite a few places. I 100% is always Japan for me. I've been to like Russia, I've been to Germany, I've been to Switzerland and Spain and all kinds of places. And I literally, if I could move to Japan, absolutely I would. I know that there are some difficulties in Japan culturally and socially, but
Yeah.
the it's just a world that you cannot like you can't leave without missing it almost immediately. You're on that plane, you're like, I just wish I could go back. It's for me, Tokyo is a dream. It really is.
Awesome. Well, I know you and I are kind of somewhat the same local community, but tell me about what the community looks like where you are. Daytona Beach. I don't know how what it looks like over there. I do know here in Orlando.
Yeah. So here we've actually, thank you, huge thanks to Pup Loves. He has actually helped a lot. He's part of like one of the local drag queen families, the Nouveau family. They've actually created a drag event that they were doing every Tuesday, but they've changed it for the new year. But that has actually, Pup Loves has gone out of his way to create a pup friendly space in Volusia County, which is a massive thing for us. I
Mhm.
mean, I remember as a kid growing up here, I mean, yeah, I would have food thrown at me out of cars for, being who I was as a teenager. And now we have an entire pup event that we can go to at the Land Pride. We actually are able to go as a pup group. And inspired by obviously the movie event that you created, that was fantastic. Pup Loves and I have been talking about maybe creating just a smaller event here because I mean, we were always finding new pups around this area. I
Yes.
think there's about 5 of us already down here, not including some of the pups that I've helped kind of come into the pup community as well. But obviously, Orlando too. We're working on creating sober events as Orlando Leather Pride Critter. We've also been working on creating some volunteer events for the homeless and queer kids in the community. We're trying to work with Zebra Coalition, creating volunteer events with them. We're actually currently trying to work with the Homeless Coalition to create some donation boxes around the area, but also create volunteer events so that people in the community can come in, we can volunteer and show the community that Orlando Leather Pride and the Orlando Critter community in general, we're here for each other, we're here for the community, and obviously we're going to thrive regardless of how politics ends up going for us.
Yeah, exactly. And don't you come up with something that you want to do, don't leave me out because I will definitely be a part of it because
Yeah, no, I mean it's big. I have already been emailing people and stuff, but what the hope is, and obviously I can't say anything official, but we're hoping to create like a big group that we can actually go through like a sorting event. So we sort through clothes for different homeless individuals. We're trying to get like a lot of food and donation supplies. So we're working pretty hard because my goal, and one of the main things when I was running for Orlando Leather Pride Critter, was obviously I wanted more sober events. I want
Mhm.
more events that people, because obviously, there are a lot of 18 and up individuals who are pups and they're kind of excluded from a lot of our events that we hold because
Yes,
we hold them at bars. And a lot of sober individuals are also excluded because they're unable to obviously participate in a bar environment. So, I mean, obviously, with the movie events that you've been creating, I mean, that is fantastic. It handles both of those individuals who are unable to attend. And I want more of that. I absolutely love that. I want more accessibility for individuals with disabilities. I just want everyone to feel included and no one to feel excluded in this community.
agreed. Totally agree with you. So if others wanted to reach out to you, how might they get in touch with you?
So I do have Instagram and I also have Facebook. Both are under Markosias Fang. I'm working on getting a set life. I've been meaning to start one. I just haven't had the chance yet. But most people, yeah, they end up usually getting me through Instagram because I'm a little bit more active on Instagram than I am on Facebook.
Okay.
But my DMs are always open. I love hearing from people. I've had so many people reach out with questions, and I've even had people who were fans of me from years ago. I had someone recently. I was at an event, and they came up to me and they were like, "I talked to you 5 years ago, and you were so nice." And they were like, "You helped me find my way in the community, and it's been 5 years, and I recognized you immediately." And they were so happy. And obviously, another thing is, if you do see me around the community, I have little pins. I put them on my Facebook. They're free. They're silly little things. While I'm working on my title pin, but I wanted to have people be able to have these little things to be like, hey, this is funny. And, just another way to connect with the community and being like, hey, you don't have to pay for this. You can have something that, I'm going to be giving out without having to feel like a financial burden from it either.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned title. Tell everyone what your current title is. I know you won this year.
Yeah, so I did win Orlando Leather Pride Critter of 2024. It was a wild event. It was so much fun. My Skittles, Pup Skittles, was the other critter that was running with me. We had an absolute blast working together. I had told him right before I was so grateful that it was him that I was going against because, it didn't feel like it was like a mean environment. It didn't feel like we were trying to get at each other. It actually felt like we were helping each other out throughout the whole thing. And I told him I was like, I was so grateful it was you. If he had won instead, I would have been just as proud. Honestly, I know that both of us were working hard to make sure that the community feels more open to everyone. Um, so yeah, as now I'm working at with Mr. Orlando Leather Pride to create just more events because for me, the running for the title was trying to create more events that were like other events that I've been to. I was mentioning in the event that I had been to Cincinnati the other weekend, and they had ASL interpreters, and I was so like proud and grateful to see such a thing, and it inspired me to create more events down here that were just more disabled friendly, more friendly to obviously all identities, and just to bring Florida into a better place where everyone really felt like we were a real family, that there was no discrimination or anything going against. Because that's the big thing is that obviously, the Orlando critter, community, we're all family. We all can reach out to each other. We can all say, see each other as big hugs every time. I mean, that's the dream for everyone is to have a community like we have down here.
That's right. I agree. So any last words before we get off of this?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me on here. I know season 3 is a big one. I mean, you've interviewed so many people and so many critters. It inspires so many people to get involved with hearing all these different stories. And I just want to say I'm very grateful for all the work that you do.
Well, I love doing it, and as long as I can keep doing it, I'm going to keep doing it. Well, it was a pleasure getting to sit down and learn a little bit about you and everything. And I know it won't be the last time you and I talk.
Oh, 100%. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.